Hello my crocheter friends, it's Yobi here today, and in this video I'm sharing with you everything related to single crochet. Single crochet is the name of this stitch in US, but in UK, Australia and India that's called double crochet. For this crochet stitch you can use any number of chains in the foundation chain. When you are checking written patterns, single crochet is abbreviated as SC, and the abbreviation for double crochet is DC. So when you have a written pattern, you have to check which is the type of terminology that it is used in this pattern, so that you can make the right interpretation. In crochet charts, the symbol is exactly the same. It's either a cross or a little X. Now, let's begin with the tutorial. This is the pattern of a single crochet, 3 rows of single crochet, and this is what we are going to work in this tutorial. This arrow that you see on the left hand side represents the beginning of our work, and these symbols, we know it already, represent chains. For this tutorial I'm going to use, just as an example, 10 chains in my foundation chain. So what is here colored in black is my foundation chain, and here I'm going to begin the first row, and if you observe this row, you have one additional chain that it is colored in blue. This chain is the turning chain. The turning chain is the chain that we add whenever we begin a row in order to make easy to turn our work. Okay? So that means that for beginning this tutorial we have to make 10 chains of our foundation chain plus 1 turning chain. In total, 11 chains. So here I have the 11 chains that require the pattern, and I always represent this little tail of the loose end of the yarn with the beginning of this arrow. Okay, so when we read the foundation chain, we are going to read from left to right. Okay, like this. Then we are going to start to work our single crochet. Okay, but this is the first row, and the first row we are going to read it from right to left. Okay, so we have to make, so now we have to start to work the first single crochet on the last chain of our foundation chain. Okay, so here you can see my foundation chain, and if you observe here, this one is the turning chain. Okay, is the chain number 11. So this one is the last chain of my foundation chain. Here is where I'm going to work. So the first thing for the single crochet is we are going to introduce our hook under the front loop of our chain, like so. Please observe the position of my thumb and the middle finger of the left hand, because it's very close to the chain where we are working. Okay, just to give some security. Then we introduce here, and with my middle finger of the dominant hand, I'm just trying to put it on top of this so that it's really helped me to make the first single crochet in the right way. So now we continue. In this position, what we are going to do is to yarn over, okay, and then we are going to come out through this loop of this chain, of the foundation chain. Now we should have 2 loops on our hook, and I have already moved the position of my thumb from here to here, okay, just to have better control of my work. Here, when I have the 2 loops, what I'm going to do is to yarn over again, and then I'm going to pull the hook towards these 2 loops, okay, and I'm going to pull the loop of the yarn over through these 2 loops that we had on our hook. And now our first single crochet is ready. In this position, I want to show you that what you see here, these 2 strings that forms what I call a V shape, this is the first single crochet stitch, and here what you see here is the turning chain. Okay, so for the next single crochet we are going to work in the next stitch. Again, the next stitch is here, so I just place my finger a little bit close to this stitch, and at the beginning of the chain what I like is to put the chains on my middle finger just as a support. It makes it easy. So here I introduce the hook through the front loop of this chain, and then I'm going to yarn over again and come out through this loop. Now I have 2 loops on my hook, then we yarn over and we are going to pull the hook towards these 2 loops, and we are going to pull the loop of the yarn over through these 2 loops. Okay, and now I have the second single crochet. If you are a beginner, a total beginner, I will recommend you something. I will recommend you that you place 1 stitch marker here in the first single crochet, okay? So you are not going to miss this. You know, if you don't have this type of stitch marker, you can use any other thing to mark this, like bobby pins or something like that. It is up to you. These bobby pins also works, or any other ring, whatever you have in hand is going to be useful just to mark that. This is only if you are really a beginner from scratch, because sometimes it is easier to notice which is the last stitch. Now I'm going to make 1 stitch more, and just want to show you again here. So what we have to do according to our pattern is 1 single crochet in each chain. So if we have a look here, we already have worked in this chain, then here is going to be 1 single crochet, then here come the next, here the next, here the next. Okay, just put a little bit of distance and observe your work. So here we have 1 stitch, we have the V, here there is another V, here there is another V. Each V represents 1 stitch. So we are going to continue, and the next stitch is here. Okay, so again we introduce the hook through the front loop of our chain, then we are going to yarn over and come out through this gap. Now I have 2 loops on my hook, then I yarn over and pull through these 2 loops. Now we have 3 single crochet. We have to make a total of 10. I just going to continue working and meet you at the end. So now I'm almost at the end of the first row, and here please pay attention to not miss the first chain. For that you need to find your slip knot and check that in this chain, in the first one after your slip knot, you have worked your single crochet. Okay, here for instance I haven't worked yet, so I'm going to introduce my hook through this loop, then yarn over and come out through this loop. I have 2 loops on my hook, then I yarn over and pull through these 2 loops. When you finish a chain, when you finish a row, I will recommend you to count that you have made the correct number of stitches. If we had 10 stitches in our foundation chain, then you should have 10 single crochet. How to count this is simple. So here we see this V. This V shape corresponds to 1 single crochet. Okay, so here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. The last one that is with our stitch marker. So this is something that I recommend you to do every single time when you finish a row, especially when you are a total beginner. So now at the end of this row, we are going to have a look at our pattern. So what's next? So we have already worked this row. We were moving from the right to the left. We are here, and then for the second row we have to start with 1 turning chain. The turning chain, we don't count this as a stitch in the case of the single crochet. Okay, it's just a help, as I mentioned before, to win some height or the height that the stitch needs. To read this pattern or this chart, we have to do for this second row from the left to the right. Okay, so now we are going to work 1 turning chain and then 10 single crochet. So now I'm here, and as I mentioned, we have to work 1 turning chain. It's a normal chain, and then we have to turn our work like so. Okay, and in this position we have to continue working. Now the question is, where do you have to introduce your hook? There are 2 hints here. So if you have a look at your work, you are going to notice these little holes here. Okay, so this is the position where you have to introduce your hook. If you are not able to notice where it is, or you miss one, you just have to turn a little bit your work so that you are able to see this V stitch. The idea is that when you introduce your hook, you have to take the 2 parts or the 2 strings that form the V stitch. In this case, I will have to take these 2 parts. Okay? So now let's begin. We introduce the hook through the first stitch. Here I'm going to pass my hook, and as you notice, I have in my hook the two strings that form the V stitch. Okay, so in this position I place my thumb and the middle finger very close to the position where I'm working, trying to secure this. Okay, and now we again yarn over and come out through this gap that we see here. We have 2 loops on our hook, then we yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. Now we have here our first single crochet of the second row. For the next one, I'm just going to do what I mentioned before. I just see here this gap, so here I introduce my hook. Okay, here I introduce my hook, and I always verify that I'm taking the 2 parts of the stitch or the 2 parts of the V shape. And in this position, we always use our thumb and the middle finger to secure and to give some stability, and with the middle finger of this hand I try to also give some stability to the other side of our work. And here we yarn over, come out through this gap. I have 2 loops on the hook, then yarn over and pull through these 2 loops. We have now the second single crochet. As I have recommended you before, if you are a total beginner, please use this stitch marker and place this in the first stitch of this row. Okay, you leave it there, and then you just continue. So again, you introduce the hook through this gap, but just check always that you take the 2 parts of the stitch, then you yarn over and come out through this gap. We have 2 loops on the hook, then you yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. I'm going to continue working and meet you at the end of the row. Now I'm at the end of this row, and it's very common that one misses to make the last stitch, and this is the reason why I'm using this stitch marker. Otherwise, you have to always pay attention to this last stitch. Okay, so now for working this stitch, I'm just going to remove the stitch marker, and here in the gap where the stitch marker was, I'm going to introduce my hook, always taking the 2 parts of the V, and here I'm going to yarn over and come out through this gap. I have 2 loops on my hook, then I yarn over and pull through these 2 loops. Okay, so now we have our second row ready. Let's continue with the third row. So we are here at the end of the second row, and for the third row we are going to move from the right to the left. The first thing that we found here is again 1 turning chain, and then we start to work our 10 single crochet. This is the same number of stitches that we had in our foundation chain. Okay, so for the third row we are going to make one chain, then we turn our work, and here again we see the gaps that we had. Here is where we are going to introduce our hook. So don't forget that at the end of each row you have to count the number of stitches. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, this one, just to, if someone gets confused, so this one is the turning chain. This is the reason why I'm not counting. I will recommend you to, if you are a beginner, to count the stitches at the end of the row before making the turning chains. It is easy and less confusing. Now let's begin working. So here we are going to introduce our hook and take the two parts of the stitch. Once more we yarn over and come out through the gap. We have two chains, we have two loops on our hook, then we yarn over and pull through the last two loops. Once more here, introduce the hook through the next gap, then again verify you have the two parts of the stitch, you yarn over and come out through this gap, you have two loops on the hook, then you yarn over and pull through the two loops. Pay attention that my fingers are always helping me. The thumb and the middle finger of the left hand and the middle finger of the dominant hand, they are really supporting me all the time. Again, you might not need to do this, but I recommend you again to place the stitch marker in the first stitch, like this, and just continue working. Now I'm almost at the end of this row, so what you have to do is to remove the stitch marker again, and here where the stitch marker was before, I'm going to make the last stitch. So again, I verify I'm taking the two parts of the stitch, I yarn over and come out through the gap, then yarn over and pull through the two loops. And now I have ready my third row. Like this, please continue adding more rows until you feel more confident when making single crochet. Try at some point to not use the stitch marker and just to realize where is the last stitch, and every time when you finish a row, don't forget to count the number of stitches. So again, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, it's easier to count before making the turning chain. And that's all what I have for you, my friends, for today. Here I have added some additional rows so you can see better how the stitch looks like. If you have enjoyed the video and you have learned something new or something useful for you, please give a like to the video. I really thank you for watching and for being here. Leave me a comment if you have any question or if you want to ask something or tell me something. You know I really love to read your comments. I hope we can be in touch through Facebook or Instagram, and see you soon. Bye!